Good evening, everybody. Today, I wanted to speak to you about basically what time you should be eating to magnify your weight loss. And I think it's interesting because we do understand that a calorie does count. It has energy. We need to be eating in a caloric deficit to lose weight in the most basic principle. But I think the timing piece is really interesting. And I also want to just share that I'll be doing this, what we describe as weight loss Wednesdays. So I'll be focusing in even kind of a hyper focus on weight loss. That's where so many of my patients are dealing with, and something that I really enjoy helping people really understand and how they can improve their health. And we will be launching our new course probably next week, which is super exciting, all about mastering your metabolism and losing weight. And it has been months with beta groups and building this out with all the information I have. So I'm super excited. But let's get to the meal timing let's talk about, see what the science says. And I also wanted to speak to you about what does the fat actually do in the body? Like, how does it break down, and what's the cause? Like, why does the fat say, hey, I'm going to break down today? But first, let's jump to meal timing and look at the study. So when you think about, there are various findings, but it does seem to be one particular point that I think will be beneficial for some people. So number one, meal timing can affect weight loss effectiveness. Studies have shown that the timing of the food can influence weight loss outcomes. And so individuals who eat earlier in the day tend to lose more weight than those who eat more later in the evening. And the effect occurs regardless of the total caloric intake, which is crazy, right? So understanding that meal timing can have a significant factor in weight regulation. What this means for you is you should be eating breakfast. We should be eating like a king in the morning, a queen at lunch, and a pauper at night, right? So really focusing in on more of those calories earlier in the day. And, it may be a big part of it is that you're moving around more. You have more energy if you've eaten breakfast. But again, I think there's some other pieces here I'll get to with some of the other research. The other study was a study by authors Megson and et al. In 2017, mentioned that eating breakfast is really associated again with better weight management. So regular breakfast consumption was linked to lower body weight and better weight management, though the benefits vary depending on the individual's dietary habits and the type of breakfast consumed. So increasing breakfast consumption while keeping the total number of meals constant had been associated with improved weight loss outcomes. So that was really cool. Then there's always a monkey wrench to throw into the mix. Not all studies agree on the benefits of weight loss. So some studies found no significant difference in weight loss between individuals who ate breakfast and those who skip it, suggesting that breakfast consumption alone may not be a universal strategy for weight loss. So I think it really depends on you as an individual. If you've always skipped breakfast and now you're just adding breakfast, you're adding more calories and there's not some adjustment in maybe some of the other meals, you may see some weight gain or maybe see weight stabilization. So again, it's something to try if you're really struggling, if you're finding also that you're having kind of a fatigue later in the day, that might be helpful to add in more of a healthy breakfast. And I would say a higher protein breakfast would be great. Not going to be animal products, of course, but maybe a smoothie with some beans added in. You could do a tofu scramble, different things like that. Lots of different ways to get a healthier, higher protein meal earlier in the day to kind of maybe help with any maybe food cravings that you're having or early snacking. So that might be very helpful. Absolutely has been shown that higher protein can help with cravings and wanting to snack. So people will many times take that craving and eat high sugary processed foods, which of course come with a lot of calories. They don't really provide satiety. So again, thinking about whole plant foods, that would be fantastic. And then the last study showed that consuming a larger proportion of calories early in the day, particularly breakfast, was again showed it to have not only greater weight loss, but metabolic outcomes were improved, meaning things like your blood sugars and your cholesterol and those type of things were very, very, or excuse me, not very, more likely to be improved. So just some ideas there. And the clue is that that might be due to the synchronization with meal times with your circadian rhythm, which may affect what we call fat metabolism, right? And fat oxidation, which got me thinking you may have some questions regarding, well, how does a fat cell know to open up its fat stores? And then what's happening exactly? How does the fat get used up? So let me take you in here. First of all, I do want to mention there's 4 things that you may want to consider when you're in a caloric deficit and trying to lose weight. Is 1, you really want to make sure your diet has adequate protein. I would suggest minimally 1 gram per kilo. You can go upwards of maybe 1.4 to 1.6 kilograms grams per kilo to maintain your muscle mass. But that's just part of it, right? You could increase your protein, but if you're not doing some of the other things, you may not see the preservation of muscle mass in a moderate caloric deficit diet. 2 is role of physical activity, right? So incorporating resistance and endurance training is really important to stimulate the muscle to maintain muscle mass as well. And 3, just to understand that if you're not utilizing the muscle, the skeletal muscle and movement, what can happen is there's some adaptations within the skeletal muscle itself, right? And then those decrease the muscle protein turnover and they alter your thyroid hormone metabolism. So it's really important which would lead to energy conservation and fat accumulation, right? So that's where it's important to stimulate the muscle. So the metabolism adjusts to the decreased calories. Certain things are occurring in the body, but you can help navigate that with higher protein and exercise in a slight caloric deficit. I hope that makes sense. And interesting study on supplementation support. So you really just want to make sure, again, you're getting plenty of protein, and interesting with vitamin D supplementation, which I do recommend most of my patients if they do some testing and they're below 30 on their blood tests. To most people would benefit from 2,000 international units daily. So that has been shown to help decrease the risk of sarcopenia in older adults. So that was an interesting study in 2015. All right, so let's jump down to fat metabolism. Have some notes here as well. So fat metabolism in adipose tissue is also known as what we call lipolysis, right? So that involves several steps. So basically you're converting the triglycerides into energy. So first of all, we're going to go through the steps. 1, you get hormonal signaling. So the process begins with hormones and typically triggered by things like adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, glucagon, and growth hormone. And then these hormones bind to receptors on the surface of the fat cells, and they activate a particular type of enzyme. And it's called adenylate cyclase, which increases the levels of cyclic CAMP is basically the other things within a cell, okay? So now you have activation of what we call protein kinase A so you have the cyclic AMP, and activates another protein kinase, which then what we call phosphorylates hormone-sensitive lipase, and you go on and on. That goes onto the surface of the what we call the lipid droplets within the fat cells themselves. That causes the triglycerides to break down, right? So now what happens is that basically the hormone-sensitive lipase, the lipase which breaks down the actual fat, moves into the lipid droplet, right, where it breaks down the triglycerides into free fatty acids and the backbone of it called the glycerol. So there's glycerol and the free fatty acids, and that's breaking down. That is called the lipolysis, or lipolysis, different ways you can say it. So now we have the free fatty acids that are being released and the glycerol. Now the free fatty acids, they're released in the glycerol into the bloodstream. The glycerol, can be used by the liver for what we call gluconeogenesis, which is basically making glucose from non-carbohydrate resources, right? That's a whole nother process. trying to keep this as simple as possible. Yeah. So anyway, so then what happens here is we have the transport also of the fatty acids, right? So now the free fatty acids can attach to albumin, which is a protein in the bloodstream. And then it's transported to different tissues. And so those tissues include muscle, liver, the heart. And this is where what we call oxidation occurs. So now those free fatty acids are oxidized for energy. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it's called beta oxidation. So in the mitochondria of cells, those are your powerhouses, right? The powerhouses of your cell. The free fatty acids go under what we call that beta oxidation. And that's a series of reactions that break down the fatty acids into what we call acetyl-CoA molecules. And then they enter into the dreaded, what we had to memorize. I remember this in college, the Krebs cycle. So if that brings back haunts, nightmares of when you were an undergrad, I was a biology major, the Krebs cycle. There are all these little intricacies and things entering and leaving. But anyway, the acetyl-CoA enters into the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle, where it's fully oxidized, and that's where it produces ATP and some other things. ATP is the energy currency of your cells. So you have basically, let me run through it. You have hormones that your body is releasing saying, hey, we need some fat for energy. It's broken down. So basically the hormone signals the fat cells, hey, release your energy stores. Things happen on the surface of the adipocyte. Then they go into the fat cell. They break down to free fatty acids, the triglycerides into free fatty acids and, the glycerol. Now we have those transported into the bloodstream. They're taken to tissues and then utilized by the cells in the tissues to make energy in the mitochondria called ATP, which is again like giving it's like currency. It's like giving money. It's currency of energy. That's what your body's utilizing. So hope that wasn't too confusing. It's hard to make this simple. I'm working on that, make it better. But overall, meal timing does matter for some people, not everybody, according to the studies, but it seems to have a big impact for most. So eating your breakfast, that means basically probably eating before 10 or 11 a.m., at least probably 700 calories when you look at the research. And try that out for a couple of weeks and see if you don't notice a difference, especially if you're eating at least 3 hours before. If you're eating anywhere close or within 3 hours of bedtime, that's a definite thing you should be improving, is removing that bedtime snack, trying to give your body at least 3 hours before your last meal and going to sleep. So eat your breakfast, give it a shot. May work. Hopefully the science is pointing in that direction. Higher protein meals, one, to help with cravings. Two, making sure you're doing some physical activity, especially the resistance training, and potentially utilizing vitamin D as well, to help preserve your muscle mass when you're in a caloric deficit, and understanding you have hormones that are causing the breakdown of the fat tissue to release some energy in your cells. I think that's overall the big picture. So that was our first Weight Loss Wednesday. I hope you found that helpful. And I will be back. Again, check out, if you haven't joined our email list, please feel free to do so. I send out newsletters every single week. I give you some tidbit about health and lifestyle across the science that I've come across, or a lesson I've learned with patients, and try to make that consumable for you within, a 2 or 3 minute read. And I always provide a healthy plant-based recipe to tantalize your taste buds as well. And I'll be making announcements when courses are coming available and such. So check that out. Also, if you are needing some help, you're not sure how to get started, you can always join the Healing Kitchen. It's a low-cost membership. We meet every single week, like we're going to meet this evening. Brittany Giroudi, who's lost 70 pounds on a plant-based diet, she's amazing. She does 2 live cooking demos. I've learned a ton about cooking better and tastier from her. I do medical question Q&A every single week. And then we do 2 workshops. I do a workshop this month is going to be on cholesterol, and I provided detailed ebook with the live workshop and answer your questions. And we also have a guest workshop. So this month is on food addiction with a patient of mine who lost 200 pounds and kept it off for many years now. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk soon. As always, I do want to send you joy, love, peace, and abundance and healing, because again, we all need a little bit more of that in our lives. So have a good rest of your day, everyone.